Korean horror movies, or K-horror as they're fondly branded, have acquired quite a fan following over the years, and rightly so. Unlike the familiar Western tropes and usual horror movie tactics like jump scares and effects, K-horror largely relies on folklore, spirituality, and the psychological aspects of horror that resonate with the viewers. The narrative always has a lasting and haunting impact, and in this video, we'll bring you a collection of some of the underrated classics from this genre. We're going to step past modern-day hits like Train to Busan and I Saw the Devil, and focus more on the unsung heroes that deserve to be appreciated just as much. But before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Whispering Corridors, 1998. The story is premised in a Korean school where strange mishaps and accidents seem to affect a few students and even teachers. It turns out that not all the teachers in the school are treating their pupils properly, and there are plenty of dark secrets about the school that are not out in the open. It all starts to change after the spirit of a student who died 10 years ago returns and seeks vengeance on the culprits. Will the abusive teachers finally be schooled? This movie became such an iconic hit in South Korea that it went on to become a very successful franchise. But Whispering Corridors is not really a familiar name for the Western audience. This isn't your typical high school horror flick, and the narrative is slow-paced, without the usual jump scares. The slow pacing of the movie almost has a hypnotic effect on the viewers, and we also love how the social commentary highlights the toxic competitive nature of the Korean education system. All in all, this is a thinking man's film that will be appreciated by all the horror fans out there for the chilling ambiance and tense moments. The Host, 2006. Due to an American military action, toxic chemicals are dumped in the river, and as a result, a strange amphibious creature is born in the Han River. One day, it emerges from the river and attacks several people, killing many of them. The monster takes away Hyun-so, the daughter of Gang-do, and the loving family comes together in this hour of crisis. They will do everything in their power to rescue her from the clutches of the creature, especially after they learn that she's still alive. This is as good as the creature horror genre gets, and the grandeur of the visuals are enough to steal your heart. What makes the movie even more special is that it can be approached as a dark comedy, a monster flick, or even a sentimental drama filled with socio-political allegory. The symbolism and cultural references are hard to miss, and we love the satirical jibes at the authorities. Unlike such creature features, you will not really feel any sympathy for the monster in question, and the horror aspect in the narrative is omnipresent. The writer and director Bong Joon-ho is a master of his art, and this intense horror drama is a must-watch for every K-horror enthusiast out there. Tell Me Something, 1999. Detective Cho is caught up in a terrible situation. On one hand, he's dealing with the loss of his mother, and on the other hand, he's been accused of accepting dirty money. Now that he's been pushed to his limits, he gets a case that seems to be a mysterious dead end. Severed corpses of 3 men have been found in cars and bags in Seoul City, and as Cho dives deeper into the case, he realizes the real motives of the killer. Can he finally solve the case and redeem himself? Horror comes in all shapes and sizes, and it doesn't necessarily have to come from paranormal activities of a disgruntled spirit. The gory and stylish execution of Tell Me Something makes it fun to watch, but you have to be careful about the details because the narrative has plenty of information. The climactic moments can be a bit confusing, but most people claim that the movie gets lost in translation and dubbing. However, if you look past this, you're all set for a haunting experience complete with brilliant special effects. The dismembered body parts look uncomfortably real, and if you can figure out the twisted storytelling, you will remember the movie for a very long time. Woman's Wail, 1986. Sometimes the simplest of stories can induce the best of horror movies, and Woman's Wail is a great example of that. The story follows the horrid experience of a family that's being preyed upon by a vengeful spirit. It's gained their trust by posing as a human, but time is running out for the family as it picks off its victims one by one. Can the survivors find a way to ward off the spirit before it's too late? Why did the spirit pick this family in the first place? In order to find the answers, you must must journey into the cursed domain, and you have to be brave enough to watch the complete film. This is probably one of the most underrated movies in our video today, and the reason is the lack of availability. It's difficult to access, but we can assure you that the movie will be worth your search efforts. The tense ambience is set to send a few shivers down your spine, and the scary bits come frequently till you're dazed with fear. The concept may not be very innovative, but the execution surely is. And what helps the narrative is a spirited acting performance by the cast. Make sure you get your hands on the right subtitles, because your experience will be half-baked without the right context. Thirst, 2009. Vampire horror and Korean movies are a match made in heaven, and Thirst is among the most underrated movies in the genre. The story follows a priest named Song Hyun, whose life changes drastically after he voluntarily undergoes a medical experiment. It turns him into a vampire, and he does everything in his capacity to be a good vampire, true to his ethical upbringing. But there are certain carnal vampirical urges that cannot be ignored, and the Catholic priest soon finds himself in questionable waters after he indulges in the pleasures of the flesh. Thirst offers a unique twist on the usual vampire trope, and director Park Chan-wook continues his inventive methods. The story is gripping and holds your attention the whole time. The flawless direction makes it easy to consume, and we love the emphasis on characterization throughout the movie. The gruesome and melancholic world of the vampires offer the perfect visual experience, and you must be prepared for some explicit moments in the narrative. The length of the movie can be an issue for some, but if you have the patience, you can be assured of top-quality entertainment in this unusual presentation. If Twilight has corrupted your brain a bit too much, this can be the perfect antidote to save the day. Suddenly in the Dark, 1981. This erotic horror thriller boasts of an intriguing premise, where the life of a wealthy biology professor goes for a toss after he hires a new housemaid. The young woman named Mi-oke happens to be the daughter of a shaman priestess who died recently, and she carries a strange wooden doll with her. The professor's wife suspects him of having an affair with the maid, and it makes things worse when she takes it a step further and ends up killing Mi-oke. What follows next is a terrifying flurry of visions where she watches the doll attacking her, and there seems to be no end to this madness. Is this all in her mind, or is there something sinister about the wooden doll? Suddenly in the Dark is more of a psychological horror flick that leaves a long-term effect on the viewers. The unsettling atmosphere is memorable, and it will be as enjoyable as it will be disturbing. If you talk of the special effects, they're not really out of this world, but they do get the job done. The slow pacing is not really problematic because the ritualistic nature of the film doesn't allow for a dull moment. It's fascinating how a simple start leads to such an eerie climax, and the musical score is also worth mentioning. If you want a good taste of intense psychological horror at its finest, look no further and enjoy this hidden gem. The Hut, 1981. A family is being haunted by evil spirits, and many exorcists have failed in their attempts to get rid of the curse. The male heirs of the family die young, and currently one of them is in a comatose state. In this critical situation, a young woman is called, and the shaman must find a cure before it's too late. Things get further complicated when she realizes the challenges that await her and the vengeful spirit who is the root cause of all the chaos. Can she arrange for the spirit to rest in peace, or will she fail just like those before her? If you form a generic image of Korean horror films in your head, this is the closest that you can get. The movie explores various aspects deep-rooted in Korean culture and local lore, and the ritualistic approach adds to the mystery. The setting is in a village, and it helps in enhancing the creepy ambiance. The frantic pacing of the film actually makes it fun to watch, and we love how carefully the several questions are answered by the end of the narrative. Overall, The Hut is an underrated classic that deserves a lot more attention from the horror fans, and you can surely keep this on your watch list for the next movie night. 301, 302, 1995. Two women live in the same apartment, but the neighbors have a very different approach to life. One of them indulges in random relationships and spending, while the other lives her life in self-imposed austerity. The one living in apartment 301 is a chef, and the one in apartment 302 is a writer who refuses meals offered to her. The strain in their bizarre relationship soon spirals out of control, and they start to relive the trauma of their past. But what happens when one of them goes missing mysteriously. Things often get weird in K-horror flicks, but this one takes things to a whole new level. The premise is set for an interesting narrative, and the actors don't disappoint in the challenging roles of the two protagonists. It can feel slightly dragged at times, but not if you focus on the deeper concepts at play. For instance, if you keep the horror and psychological complexities aside, you'll also notice that the movie is also about love and loneliness. Of course, there are several disturbing scenes that can take the unprepared audience by surprise, but aren't they the best things about horror flicks? Treat this one as a well-researched horror thriller, and you will not be disappointed by what the movie has to offer. EO Island, 1977. There's a pristine island with abundant natural beauty, and an investor intends to build a tourist resort to exploit the unspoiled beauty. However, the mysterious EO Island has some strange legends around it, and the investor must find out the truth before he goes all in. There's also something else at play here, and a man has disappeared under strange circumstances. The investor is the one suspected of killing him, and resolving the mystery will also prove his innocence. But what happens when he unravels the dark secrets of the island? It's unfortunate that such a thoughtful movie has been overlooked for decades. The director, Kim Ki-young, has dared to defy the rules of censorship during the 70s, and he's brought about a cinematic pearl that is truly multi-dimensional. Besides the overwhelming horror and mystery involved in the plot, the film also deals with various social issues. There are several scenes that can be deemed a bit too disturbing for sensitive viewers, but if you can brave through that, you can enjoy the depth of the intricate plot. Those who have watched Wicker Man can resonate with the similarity in the storyline, and we strongly recommend the movie, especially for the notoriously graphic climax. Ghosts of Chosun, 1970. The lust of a prince brings about his doom, and this iconic horror drama captures the intricate details of this mystery. It all starts when Prince Yeonsang-gun lusts after a woman named Yahua, who refuses his advances. In retaliation, the prince brands her husband a traitor and has him executed. The woman's unable to cope with the loss, and she kills herself by slitting her throat. However, in her dying breath, she commands her cat to drink her blood as a part of a sinister ritual. We soon get to witness the outcome as the husband-wife duo comes back as vengeful spirits with a monstrous cat. This movie takes up a challenging task of introducing period drama vibes in a horror story, and the director, Shin Sang-ok, gets the job done to perfection. The narrative is well knit, and we love how there are no loose ends. There are enough scary moments to keep you on the edge of your seats, and this movie doesn't get its due credit for the attention to detail. Even the acting performances are commendable, and there's hardly a wrong step in the entire filmmaking process. If you want a fantasy drama with some genuinely unnerving moments, this is the perfect K-horror film for you to check out. Woman Chasing the Butterfly of Death, 1978. This is a case of contrasting characters putting together a fine show as the narrative takes you on a bizarre journey alongside the depressed young man named Young-gul. He comes across a diverse range of people in his life, starting with a crazy book salesman obsessed with Hitler to a female corpse who has been resurrected. He also encounters an archaeologist and his unstable daughter, and his earlier urge to kill himself changes to a quest of learning more about life and death. What are your thoughts on a horror flick that banks heavily on well-formulated philosophies? Well, we have to admit that this is not one of the conventional scary movies, and instead, it's a thought-provoking narrative that will stay with you for a very long time. The interesting low-budget special effects are merely a distraction, as are the weird moments in the story. It's unfortunate that even with such great content, the movie hasn't become a cult classic over the decades. The deliciously macabre and dark storytelling is nothing like you've seen before, and it's worth watching for this reason alone. If you're someone who enjoys exploring outside the mainstream horror flicks, this might be a wonderful change of taste. The Devil's Stairway, 1964. Life seems to be perfect for a renowned surgeon who is all set to marry the daughter of the hospital director. However, things take a terrible turn for him when he realizes that his mistress, who happens to be a nurse, is pregnant. In order to save his career, he kills the nurse and disposes her body in a lake. But it's not the end of the story, because the doctor keeps seeing apparitions of the nurse, and her spirit torments him in the worst ways possible. All hell breaks loose when he ends up killing his fiancée fiancé in a confused state. And now it's payback time for everyone he's wronged. A lot of the Korean movies are about the downsides of being too ambitious, and it seems like a common social problem in the country. Even this film dwells on the subject, and the maddening lust for improvement in his career is quite evident in the surgeon. He also pays the price for his greed and disregard for others. But aside from the preachy reforms, the movie also entertains sufficiently. We're fans of the multiple complications in the plot, and you're going to be terrified of the psychological complexities that are on display. You can say it serves him right, but you'll still be fearful of all that's coming for him. Madam Whitesnake, 1960. We've already spoken about the importance of folklore in Korean horror, and this movie's a great example of how effectively the rich lore is used in cinema. Madam Whitesnake tells the story of a beautiful woman who's been transformed from a poisonous white snake by a demon. She was created to destroy a monk who works in service of the goddess of mercy, and soon she's caught up in a dilemma about how to deal with her past. Although this is a Korean movie, the folktale that has been used is of Chinese origins. The movie's made considerable changes to the plot, and not every description provided in the narrative is accurate enough. The folktale that forms the basic structure of the plot has been used multiple times in cinema, and this is one of the better efforts. The only problems with the movie are the low budget and acting performances. Maybe because the makers couldn't hire a well-known actor, they had to settle for some mediocre ones, and the movie would have been a lot better with the right people in the right roles. However, don't let these minor shortcomings disappoint you, because there are plenty of positives that can be taken from this filmmaking effort. Deathbat, 2008. This Korean horror slasher flick was quite popular back in the day, and the makers even came up with a sequel. It follows 20 high school students who are part of an elite class that prepares for a college exam. The group includes a diverse range of individuals, and things soon take a serious turn when it's revealed that the students are part of a death game. Questions will be posed before them, and failure to answer will result in their deaths. Even the teachers are forbidden to leave, and what follows is a sinister trap laid out for them to be a part of a game orchestrated by some extremely twisted minds. This dramatic high school slasher often gives Saw vibes, but the execution of the concept is perfectly handled. There are some noticeable flaws in the narrative, but what really catches our attention is the fast-paced nature of the story and the unadulterated entertainment on offer. We recommend this as a guilty pleasure, because putting your mind to it will take you nowhere. The lack of logic has to be accepted, and you have to enjoy it for what it is, mindless fun. We have to admit that the ending is shaky in this film, and a little more attention to detail would have promoted this up the ranks considerably. A Bloodthirsty Killer, 1965. This movie also goes by the name A Devilish Homicide, just in case you want to avoid any confusion. It tells the story of a woman who's murdered by her jealous mother-in-law and cousin. However, revenge comes in all forms, and the vengeful spirit of the slain woman returns to deliver justice to her killers. She takes multiple forms, including that of a cat, and everyone responsible for her death is picked off one by one. This is a rather simplistic horror movie premise, but it gets the job done effortlessly. You'll ignore the nonsensical tone of the story and focus on the scary elements. Such is the nature of the narrative. The low budget is visible in some of the scenes, and the special effects are nothing to write home about. But even with such constraints, the movie finds a way to entertain the viewers. There are a couple of extremely creepy moments that are bound to fuel a few nightmares, and we love how the ghost has been portrayed. This low-effort classic ghost story strikes a chord with the horror fans, and this is a film that is very difficult to dislike. The Housemaid, 1960. Mr. Kim is a respected piano teacher, and he lives with his wife and 2 children. His wife works at a sewing machine, and he decides to hire help to assist her with the housework. It all seems like a perfect plan to balance their life, but the new housemaid turns out to be a lot more than what they bargained for. She shows strange behavior and is particularly obsessed with Mr. Kim, even seducing him to develop a physical relationship. When she becomes pregnant, she even torments Mr. Kim's wife, and a forced miscarriage pushes things over the edge. Will the family be destroyed by the psychotic housemaid? The Housemaid begins rather slowly, but once it hits top gear, there's no looking back. This is a film that will genuinely scare you, and no one will be hiring housemaids after watching this one. The ridiculous melodrama that ensues is intriguing, and it's said that the actress who played the role of the housemaid got so involved with the character that she never found work after this film. The climax is genuinely shocking, and we wonder what the original scene looked like because much of it was omitted because of its graphic nature. Seek out this obscure gem and your next horror movie night will be just perfect. The Public Cemetery Under the Moon, 1967. In an effort to have a better life, a geisha takes a job for a rich businessman, but she doesn't get the happy ending she dreamed of. The man's mother and her servant conspire to have her killed because they were jealous of her presence and influence. Her spirit doesn't find peace after the unnatural death, and she comes back to haunt her killers. As it turns out, revenge is a dish best served by a dead person. The story is effective, even though it's been attempted multiple times in K-horror flicks. This will not appeal to those looking for something unique, but the fans of conventional horror will be quite pleased with the effort. What we didn't like about the movie is the really slow middle part that almost tests your patience, but the dramatic climax makes up for the waiting game. The lack of hard-hitting ghost action might be somewhat disappointing, but you can be assured about some terrifying moments, especially the courtyard encounter and the scene in the woods. Overall, it's a movie worth watching, and K-horror fans will find this to be a solid addition to their collection. The Hole, 1997. The era is pre-2000, and Taiwan is in the grip of a strange disease spread by cockroaches. It affects people adversely, and the authorities order an evacuation of the city with immediate effect. Some inhabitants, however, stay put in their apartment buildings, and the story is largely focused on the lives of those living in 2 apartment buildings. A plumber accidentally drills a hole in the floor, and this causes the inhabitants of the 2 apartments to form a unique connection. The inventive nature of the movie is what makes it truly unique, and it's a haunting study into alienation and loneliness. The narrative is complex, and it can be painfully difficult to watch. The disease in particular is quite terrifying, as people go into a psychosis and act like insects do before an inevitable death. The element of horror is subtle but omnipresent, and this is not your average horror flick with a vengeful spirit on the prowl. We have to admire the genius of the director, and the script steals the show. Also, there has to be a special mention of the unique musical numbers, and we wouldn't be exaggerating in saying that the movie deserves to be a cult classic all over the world. Well, that's it for this list. Do let us know in the comments below which one of these movies is among your favorites, and also tell us about any other such underrated K-horror flick that we may have left out. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.